welcome to the podcast. If you're tuning in for the first time, I'm so glad you're here. And if you've been here before, welcome back. This podcast is by college students for college students, and we dive deep into the issues that hit close to home during our academic journey, especially when it comes to mental health. Our goal is to bring awareness to these topics and remind you that you're never alone in what you're going through. Today's episode is all about anxiety, something I'm sure many of us have faced, especially as college students. We'll explore what anxiety really is, how it shows up in our lives, and what we can do to cope. Ready to dive in? Let's get started. First things first, what exactly is anxiety? According to the American Psychological Association, anxiety is an emotion characterized by feelings of tension, worried thoughts, and physical changes like increased blood pressure. Sounds familiar, right? But here's the thing, anxiety isn't a one-size-fits-all experience. It can manifest in many different forms and affect each of us in unique ways. So, let's talk about one of the most common types, generalized anxiety. Generalized anxiety is basically when you're in a constant state of worry about anything and everything. It's not just about the big stuff, like family issues or financial stress. It could be something as simple as, what if I don't have time to do my laundry? Or, what if the elevator in my dorm stops working? We all get stressed about upcoming tests or friend drama from time to time, but generalized anxiety takes those normal worries and cranks them up a notch. Imagine this. You've finished all your homework for the day, but instead of relaxing, your mind jumps to, can I even get my laundry done? Or, what if there's no detergent left? What if the washer is full? What if my card balance is too low? And suddenly, you're spiraling over something that might seem small, but feels overwhelming in that moment. That's what generalized anxiety does. It turns everyday tasks into a constant cycle of what ifs. It's super important to recognize that while everyone worries sometimes, anxiety feels like an overflow where the thoughts and fears get bigger and more persistent. And even though we might think, hey, everyone worries, generalized anxiety is different because it makes even the most everyday tasks feel like a huge deal. One of the biggest triggers for anxiety in college is probably academic pressure. It can feel overwhelming, right? We've all been there, those moments where the weight of exams, papers, and deadlines makes everything feel too heavy. Research even backs this up. Studies have shown that college students dealing with high academic stress often struggle more with their overall mental well-being. But academic pressure shows up in different ways. Maybe it's those sleepless nights where your mind just won't stop racing. You're lying in bed, your brain replaying lectures, flipping through mental flashcards, worrying about that exam, even when you're supposed to be resting. Or maybe it's imposter syndrome creeping in, telling you you're not smart enough, you don't belong here, even though you have plenty of proof that you do. Then there's that lingering sense of dread. You know the one. When the books are closed, the lights are off, and you're lying in bed trying to sleep, but your mind is still running through everything you have to do. It doesn't matter if you've always been a straight A student, or if you're already in your third year. That pressure to perform can still catch up with you, and let's be real. Sometimes it feels like the easiest solution is to let AI take over, to handle that paper you forgot to start. Sure, it might get you through the deadline, but here's the catch. It won't stop the nagging voice in your head saying, what if my professor finds out? What if I get kicked out? It's like putting a Band-Aid on a much deeper issue. It might cover up things temporarily, but it doesn't help you grow, learn, or prepare for the challenges ahead. Managing academic stress isn't just about getting the grade. It's about finding ways to stay grounded, protect your well-being, and keep moving forward in a healthier, more balanced way. It's important to remember that anxiety from academic pressure doesn't just show up before an exam or deadline. It can creep into our everyday lives and affect things like sleep, appetite, concentration, and overall well-being. Think about those nights when you're tossing and turning, your mind racing with equations or essay outlines, even though you've closed your books and are ready to sleep. That's academic anxiety spilling over into the rest of your life. And here's the thing, it's not something to brush off. When anxiety becomes a constant lingering presence, it can lead to more serious issues like panic attacks, depression, and burnout. It's a downward spiral that can leave you feeling exhausted and overwhelmed. Academic anxiety isn't just a fleeting feeling. It can have a real, lasting impact on your mental and physical health. How many of you listening right now have felt that nagging uneasiness, even when you're not actively studying or prepping for an exam? It's more common than we think, and it's important to acknowledge that you're not alone in feeling this way. There's absolutely no shame in it. Many students feel overwhelmed by the demands of college, and recognizing that doesn't make you weak. It just means we're all under an immense amount of pressure, and it's okay to admit that. I want to share a personal story with you. There was one semester where I was juggling 6 courses and 2 internships. It was a lot, trying to keep up with classes, perform well in my internships, and maintain some semblance of a life. I started feeling off, but I didn't really understand what was happening until I hit a wall. I was completely burned out. That's when I realized something had to change. I was so drained, mentally and physically, that even the things I used to love didn't bring me any joy. It felt like the light had gone out in my life. That's when I reached out to my friends, and to my surprise, they got it. They had been through similar experiences, feeling overwhelmed, under pressure, and not knowing how to cope. Talking to them helped. They reminded me that it's okay to lean on others when things get tough. Whether it's academics or mental health, you don't have to go through it alone. Sometimes it's about reaching out and saying, I need help. Whether that's to a friend, a mentor, or a mental health professional, just having someone listen can make all the difference. Maybe you've been struggling with things like anxiety, feeling like you've lost track of your classes, or not having the energy to study. That's exactly why mental health services exist, to help you sort through these feelings and get back on track. You can talk to someone and say, I'm not sure what to do, and I'm feeling overwhelmed. No one should face these challenges alone. If you're feeling the pressure from exams, assignments, or life in general, this episode is for you. You're not alone in this. We're all in this together. Another type of anxiety that I believe a lot of you can relate to is social anxiety. Social anxiety is something that I, and plenty of people around me, have faced more often than we'd like to admit. And let's be real, college is a whole different beast compared to high school. In high school, you're often surrounded by people you've known for years. But when you step onto a college campus, it's an entirely new game. You're suddenly thrown into a sea of strangers, especially if you're coming from out of town. It's exciting, but it can also be incredibly overwhelming. Social anxiety in college is more than just feeling shy. It's that constant worry about where you fit in, especially when you feel like you need to find your people in an environment that's already been shaped long before you arrived. It can feel like there's this pressure to mold yourself into one of the pre-existing categories or groups, and that can make socializing even more difficult. Here's the thing though. Socializing in college, much like anything else, is a learning process. You're figuring out who you are, what you like, and who you vibe with. It's a time of trial and error. And yeah, that sounds scary. Trying new things, meeting new people, stepping out of your comfort zone, all while battling thoughts like, what if I say the wrong thing? Or what if they don't like me? But that's part of the journey. You're going to meet people who fill your cup, those who uplift and energize you, and others who may not. The key is being open to these experiences and recognizing that everyone's going through it in some way. The beauty of college is that most campuses are buzzing with opportunities to connect. There are student events, clubs, and activities happening all the time, offering a chance to find those friendships that can last a lifetime. So, if social anxiety is something you're battling, remember this. Take it step by step. You don't have to have it all figured out right away. Be kind to yourself. Socializing doesn't have to be a sprint. It's more like a marathon, where every interaction is a new step forward. And trust me, you're not alone in feeling this way. The more you put yourself out there, even in small ways, the more likely you are to find people who truly get you. Personally, I used to love social gatherings. I'd wear whatever I wanted and just be myself without much second guessing. But then, well, COVID hit. And things changed. I often think about how life felt before we had to face a global pandemic. Our generation experienced something that affected us on so many levels, emotionally, socially, and academically. It's like we were all in a pivotal chapter of our lives, and suddenly the world changed. And now, we've been trying to navigate this new normal, which, let's be honest, feels anything but normal. If you're listening to this and nodding along, you're not alone. I've had so many conversations with friends, classmates, and even professors about how the pandemic has shifted the way we socialize, how we perceive ourselves, and how we interact with others. Social anxiety is a phrase I'm hearing more often, and I think the pandemic has a lot to do with that. Think about it. Humans are naturally social creatures. We thrive in social settings, learning how to read body language, pick up social cues, or even just keep up with the latest trends. But the isolation of lockdown stripped a lot of that away. For some of us, it's made us hyper aware of what others think of us. Questions like, what do people think about me? Or, am I being judged right now? Might start popping up more often. And now, coming back to crowded places, whether that's a campus party, a lecture hall, or even just the dining hall, it feels like we have to relearn how to be social again. Let me share a quick story about a friend of mine. She was an exchange student during our junior year and struggled with social anxiety. Whenever there was an event on campus, she'd always ask people to come with her. She said having someone with her made her feel safe. That's the key word, safe. For those of us who deal with anxiety, that feeling of safety can be the difference between showing up or staying home. She also had this strategy. She'd always wear one AirPod when walking around campus with music playing softly. It wasn't because she didn't want to talk to people, but because it gave her a sense of control. With that little bit of music, she could decide when to engage and when to retreat into her own world if it got overwhelming. It worked for her. And that's what's important, finding what works for you. Maybe it's music. Maybe it's hanging out with a trusted friend. Or maybe it's stepping out of a room when things get too intense. Everyone's needs are different, and there's no one-size-fits-all answer. Mental health does not need to be taboo. College is supposed to be a time where you explore who you are and the complexity of you. A lot of people also have the same struggles as you and I do. The more we talk about it, the more we can let others know that it's okay for them to talk about it, and there is nothing wrong with seeking support from someone who spends years learning about something that is going on in you. Therefore, I would like to offer some strategies and tips. As I was mentioning, I'm going to share some practical strategies and tips to manage stress, anxiety, and other mental health challenges that often come with college life. These are things that have worked for me and others, and I hope they can help you too. One of the most critical steps in taking care of yourself is realizing that it's completely okay to ask for help when you need it. Yet, we know that stigma still surrounds mental health, and that can make reaching out feel intimidating. You might worry about being judged, misunderstood, or even labeled as weak. But let me say this loud and clear. Stigma only thrives in silence. The more we talk about mental health openly, the more we can break down these barriers that prevent people from getting the support they need. Let's work together to create a culture of understanding and support, where asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. Taking control of your mental health isn't just about reacting when things go wrong. It's about being proactive in improving your overall well-being. For instance, if you're feeling anxious, seeking professional help is as natural and necessary as going to a doctor when you have a physical illness. When we're sick, we don't hesitate to visit a doctor, right? So, why should mental health be any different? Therapists, counselors, and mental health professionals are experts who can help you develop strategies to manage anxiety, stress, or whatever challenges you're facing. They've spent years learning how to understand the human mind, and they're there to provide you with the support and guidance you need. And here's some good news for students. Many colleges and universities offer counseling services, often for free or at a low cost. These resources can be game changers for anyone navigating stress, anxiety, or even bigger challenges during their college years. Yet, so many students either aren't aware of these services or feel uncomfortable seeking them out. Maybe the idea of sitting in a room with a counselor feels too intense, and that's okay. There are so many ways to get help. From online counseling platforms to mental health helplines, there's an option for everyone. The important thing is not how you get help, but that you recognize that you don't have to go through this alone. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a way of empowering yourself. You deserve to feel supported, to have the tools and resources to manage your mental health, and to truly thrive on your academic journey. So, take that step, reach out, and let's continue breaking the stigma, one conversation at a time. Another big part of managing academic anxiety is having a social support system. And by social support, I don't just mean being surrounded by people. It's really about finding meaningful connections with those who get what you're going through. You know, people who understand the pressures of school, who can lift you up when things get tough, and remind you that you're not in this alone. These are the connections that truly make a difference. It's not about having a massive social circle or a ton of acquaintances. It's about having a few people who genuinely care about you and want to see you succeed. Think about it. Whether it's classmates, professors, or mentors, you never know who might become a key source of support during your college journey. Take some time to foster these relationships. Sometimes it's as simple as joining a club or a group where people share the same interests. That's actually how I met one of my best friends, and they've been a huge help for me. Volunteering is another way to build connections and find that sense of community. Plus, it's a bonus. It helps you develop new skills and looks great on a resume. And don't forget about your professors. They've been through it all. And a lot of them are more approachable than you might think. They can offer advice, guide you through difficult times, and help you gain perspective. You never know. A conversation with a professor could open up opportunities you didn't even know were there. So, take those small steps. Building your support network doesn't have to happen overnight, but it can make a huge difference when it comes to managing stress and thriving in college. Another major key to dealing with academic stress and anxiety is self-efficacy. Now, self-efficacy is just a fancy way of saying believing in yourself. It's that inner confidence that you can take on whatever challenges school throws at you. Whether it's managing your time, tackling a tough exam, or balancing your workload with everything else going on, self-efficacy is all about trusting that you've got the skills to make it through. Think of it as your inner coach. It's what helps you stay grounded when things get hectic and pushes you to keep going when you're overwhelmed. One of the best ways to start building self-efficacy is with time management. Using a calendar or planner to schedule study sessions, breaks, and even fun activities with friends can make your workload feel more manageable. When you can see your tasks laid out visually, it reduces that overwhelming feeling. It becomes doable, not impossible. But here's something we often forget. You also need to celebrate your wins. Think back to all those times you nailed a challenging assignment or did better than expected on an exam. Those are huge victories. Take a moment to reflect on how you got there. What strategies worked? How did you push through? Celebrating these achievements not only boosts your mood, but it reminds you that you have what it takes to succeed, again and again. Remember, self-efficacy isn't a one-time thing. It's a mindset that you build over time. With each small victory, each challenge you face, you're creating this solid foundation of belief in yourself. And it's something you can keep growing throughout college. When those anxious feelings come up, remind yourself, you've faced tough situations before, and you've come out stronger. This is no different. It's important to see this journey as an ongoing process, a journey of self-discovery and empowerment. You will face tough moments, but you also have the strength within you to handle them, and that strength grows with each success, no matter how small. So here's the thing. You've got this. You have the power to manage academic stress, to tackle anxiety, and to thrive in your college experience. It all starts with believing in yourself, because you're far more capable than you realize. Before we wrap up, I want to share a few practical tips that might help. First, Do your best. But remember, perfection is not the goal. It's okay if you don't hit the mark every time. Be proud of your progress and how far you've come. And let go of the need to control everything. Sometimes it's about putting stress in perspective. Ask yourself, is this really as bad as I'm making it out to be? Next, don't forget the power of humor. A good laugh can work wonders for your mood. Get involved with something outside of school. Volunteering or being active in your community can help you build a support network and give you a much needed break from academic pressures. It's also important to understand what triggers your anxiety. Is it school? Work? Family? Take some time to journal when you're feeling stressed or anxious and look for patterns that may help you identify your triggers. You might also try activities like yoga, journaling, meditation, or even reading. Anything that helps you unwind and refocus. Exercise in particular is a great way to clear your mind and release some of that built up stress. And finally, talk to someone. Whether it's friends, family, or a therapist, don't hesitate to reach out when you're feeling overwhelmed. Sometimes just talking things out can help lighten the load. We've all been there. But as we've discussed, you don't have to face these challenges alone. There are strategies, resources, and most importantly, a community of people who understand and want to support you. Taking care of your mental health isn't selfish, it's essential. It's about being kind to yourself, recognizing your limits, and making time for the things that bring you joy. Balance is key. It's not just about academic success, it's about living a fulfilling, healthy life in all areas. And just a quick disclaimer before we go, this podcast is run by a college student, me. While I hope this conversation brings some helpful insights, it's not meant to serve as a diagnosis or professional advice. My goal is to share my experience and provide a space where we can connect, empathize, and support one another. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Take care of yourself, and good luck on your journey.